hear me out, okay? For this video, for Walter White, I am going bald. Well, kind of bald. Nothing ever made in the history of the silver screen will ever top Breaking Bad in any way, shape, or form. And if there's one piece of media I'm willing to give my life to, it would be Breaking Bad. Now imagine this. It's 2008, a Sunday night. You're on your couch, you're switching channels left and right, and you land on this show with a 50-year-old something guy pointing a gun at you. You don't know why, you don't know how it happened, but he's just there. You're not sure what to expect, and so you stay for the whole ride, unaware of its future monolithic status as one of the most critically acclaimed TV shows of all time. But this isn't why we're here. Breaking Bad is more than just drama. It is depression. It is more than just tremendous. It is tragedy. There are certain rules to be followed when writing the emotional tone of a story. Make emotion natural, anchor emotion to the plot and vice versa, make sure that the visuals adhere to the tone, and keep the music in the same wavelength of level and gravitas. If it's funny, make it feel funny. If it's sad, it's sad. No in between. But Breaking Bad breaks all of those rules. It is common for most shows to subvert emotional tones with jarring shifts in style and music, but when a show is so dedicated to making gritty, violent crime a dopamine-riddled vibe, you can't help but feel nauseous, numb, or even worse, nihilistic. Let's discuss what is in Breaking Bad's story and characters that makes it so bleak and depressing.
I have cancer. It's bad.
The usual question that pops up in Breaking Bad forums is whether or not Walter's cancer awoke Heisenberg or created it. The two words are similar in nature but different in their actual definitions. To say that Heisenberg was awoken is to declare that Heisenberg is a persona within Walt that was dormant in him that the cancer brought to the surface, while saying that Heisenberg was created meant that it did not exist before the events of Breaking Bad. Vince Gilligan was adamant to keeping the whole answer under wraps, probably to create the sense of mystique around Walter's blurry past. But to you, do you think that Heisenberg was there the whole time, or did the cancer create it? Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. When you watch Breaking Bad for the first time, there are details that suggest that it was dormant within him, that it was developed over his 2-year stint as a drug dealer. Walter White lives his life on the fear of making the wrong choice. He is mild-mannered, if not milquetoast, in his mannerisms and overall demeanor. Hank even quips,
"You got a brain the size of Wisconsin."
To which Walt gently, or if annoyed at all, smiles it off. Instead of merely stating that Walter's evil misdeeds stem from his will alone, we cannot forget the existential burden his cancer has placed onto him. There are moments in the first season, even to the 5th, where he is despondent and hopeless, contemplating on his life. By the pool, flicking burnt matches onto the still and ignored pool water. His constant treatments, questioning his mortality and time, and his visible rage at the situation. In the first episode, as Walt is silently bearing the weight of his life slipping off his control, his family, friends, and even Jesse Pinkman remain as they are, all unchanged and uninformed of what Walter can or may do in the seasons to come. He breaks bad. Skyler White comes across as the kind of person who holds everything together without asking for much in return. There's a clear sense of protectiveness in her, especially towards family, and she doesn't shy away from asking tough questions when something feels off. Even though she's not in the center of the action yet, her presence is an anchor in the conflict of Walter's descent. Hank and Marie Schrader feel like that bold, outspoken couple you can't help but notice at every family gathering. Hank is a DEA agent who masks his intensity with humor and bravado, often coming off as the life of the party while hiding a much deeper, more driven side. Marie, Skyler's sister, or Hank's wife, brings a mix of sass and concern, someone who clearly cares but struggles with boundaries and impulse control. Walter Jr., or Flynn, is the 16-year-old kid who you know hasn't experienced life at all, just being a constant nuisance to both Walt and Skyler. However, the series goes out of its way to feature Walter Jr., or Flynn, sure, as a son who deeply cares about his parents. As the series progresses, he starts to view his parents in ways that make him question the stability of their conflicted family, and eventually, his father's dark side. Meanwhile, Jesse Pinkman starts out as a small-time meth cook with reckless charm, a sense of freedom, and a surprising innocence despite his lifestyle. He's not book smart, but he's quick-witted, likable, and emotionally untouched by the darker side of the drug world. Why this matters is because Jesse's early lightness becomes a haunting contrast to the broken man he later becomes. Watching where he starts makes his eventual transformation one of the most emotionally devastating arcs in the entire series, and the clearest example of how proximity to power, manipulation, and unchecked ambition can destroy a soul. Aside from Walter, there are characters who affect each other in ways that lean on the borderline depths of despair that people with depression experience. In short, everyone affects everyone, whether they like it or not.
Wake up. Jesse, wake up.
From seasons 1 to 5, there are a myriad of actions that have disastrous consequences for other people. Walter White starts cooking meth for the family, which introduces crime and danger into countless lives, and lies to Skyler about his second phone, beginning the erosion of their marriage. He also lets Jane die, leading to Jesse's emotional breakdown and Jane's father causing a major air disaster. He poisons Brock, manipulating Jesse into turning against Gus. Meanwhile, Jesse hooks up with Jane and enables both their relapses. He also introduces Combo to dealing, leading to Combo's death, triggering Jesse's guilt spiral. From the very beginning up to the end, Skyler White launders Walt's money, compromising her morality, and traps herself in Walt's empire. She also has an affair with Ted misusing the money she gives him, triggering IRS scrutiny. Although morally just and honorable, Hank Schrader pushes too hard on his investigation, getting assaulted and eventually shot. Sadly, he keeps digging for the truth after his injury, which leads him to his death when he confronts Jack's gang. Surprisingly, Gus Fring is no stranger to consequences when he kills Victor to send a message, instilling fear, but that action makes Walt and Jesse more desperate to kill him. He also uses children in his operations, which provides Jesse a moral reason to turn against him, with him getting killed in the process. Our best dad, Mike Ehrmantraut, cleans up after criminal messes for Saul, which hides criminals from the law, while working for Gus and surveilling Jesse. He also kills people on Gus's orders, wasting lives in the process. He then hits Walter's sore spot, his ego, multiple times by telling him to know his place, pushing Walt into defying and eventually killing both Gus and Mike. The charming Saul Goodman, or Jimmy McGill, helps Walt launder money and dodge the law, but he enables Walt's criminal empire to grow unchecked. He's also the sweet and handsome Snake who introduces Walt to Gus Fring, which escalates Walt's reach and leads to the deadly turf war. He also goes into hiding post-Walt, leaving behind a legal vacuum other lawyers can't fill, and escapes the justice he once twisted for others. Actions have consequences. When you prepare for a date with a girl, you fix your hair and pick out the best place to have dinner. Why? Actions have consequences. You study for an exam you know you'll fail in the hope that maybe you can pass. Why? Actions have consequences. A thief steals a watch in a jewelry store and gets arrested. Why? Actions have consequences. And what happens is, those consequences affect people in ways disproportionate to what caused them. It is not so simple to predict everything, because everything always has an answer to nothing, which always remains. And when you decide to do something, another thing will result from it, no matter how good or bad it is. Breaking Bad is no stranger to consequences. Drugs ruin lives on all fronts, from the users to the mules to the dealers, the manufacturers, and most especially the families of those affected. You are responsible for the actions of the world, and the world is responsible for what decisions you make. Control what you can control and prepare for the uncontrollable. But most of all, do the right thing. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would highly appreciate a subscription from you. This will help me make more insightful videos with topics that tackle difficult questions for your enjoyment and pondering. Now back to the video.
Oh, if I had just lived right up to that moment, and not 1 second more, that would have been perfect.
Breaking Bad's characters aren't in hell per se, just a hell of their own creation. The question of God's existence or any religion is never mentioned, only shown in subtle details and symbolism, like with karma, moral duty, and the ethics of harm. Details can be observed in moments such as Walter listing down the pros and cons of unaliving Crazy 8, Gretchen mentioning the soul, and Walter saying,
If you believe that there's a hell, we're already pretty much going there, right?
but it all points to this: doing bad leads to more bad, and escalation leads to more escalation. Most, if not all, the characters are living the worst imagined version of their lives. It may not be the case at all times for good characters such as Marie, Hank, or Gomez, but for Walter, Mike, Saul, and Jesse, especially Jesse, it is most apparent. We cannot forget Skyler, Gus, and even Hector, who choose this hell of theirs when they can simply walk away. Skyler teeters on a fine line of love, fear, and obligation, juxtaposed to safety, acceptance, and justice towards or against Walter. Like a toxic relationship, she stays in hopes that Walter quits his meth production for good, therefore satisfying her peace and security within the household. But Walter always comes back, much to her grief. Gus, on the other hand, is controlled by vengeance, a reasonable yet poisonous agenda to keep. He is not exempt from sin, as in his desire for revenge. Many lives are at stake, thousands in exchange for one man who Gus cared for, who was shot in front of him. Hector's malefactions are not to be shrugged at all. Through his close-knit ties with the cartel and his ruthless personality, his suffering comes to an ignition point when he shoots Max Arciniega, essentially forming the very man who will destroy his life, his family, and his health. From Combo, Marie, and tragically Jane, every one of their actions during the events of Breaking Bad build up to explosive and often rapid consequences. All of them want to escape in some way. But deep down, they know that their lives have been building up to what they are living with. It's all a matter of swallowing whatever hope they have and facing the music.
Face the music.
But sometimes, it will end soon. It too will pass.
Welcome to New Hampshire.
The very concept of Granite Slate is supposed to depict the pause Walter takes as he escapes to New Hampshire, a sort of limbo from the fires of Ozymandias and the redemption of Felina. If anything, Granite Slate exists to say that nothing lasts forever. Walter eventually has to perish, Walter has to make amends, and as battered his ambitions are to truly repair them, he must do something. Walter cannot outrun anything, even his own downfall. The failure to do something is going to bite him back when he rots away. But as Walter decides to escape to New Hampshire to avoid police capture, that is acknowledgement that he can't do anything anymore. It is over. Nothing lasts forever. Whatever perfect life Walter imagined for his family will inevitably derail in some form, which happens to be the case when Hanks discovers his secret through the Walt Whitman novel revealed so carelessly in the bathroom of Walter's household. If we take a step back from all the pain and anguish this TV show portrays, we must realize something. The greatest TV show of all time also had to end. In the span of 5 years, Breaking Bad flawlessly executed one of the greatest television runs in television history. Not too short and not even a touch too long. Some may even say that the final season was rushed. Some said the first season was slow. But really, it was all a matter of opinion that stemmed from personal choices. The choice of one man to cast a guest actor from another show as his main character. The choice of a few writers not to write off a main character away from the script, choosing to keep him in. The choice of one of the actors to leave his role in favor of another. All these were choices that were made, that had consequences, that were done with what can go wrong in mind. And these choices culminated into what it is now. Breaking Bad, like any other thing, had to end. Because if it didn't end, it would have turned into a terrible thing, as all things that go out of date. So in some lovely twist of fate, I'm glad that Breaking Bad ended at the right time, at the right place, with the right tone, the right song, and the right character to see it to the end. I'm glad that 3 years ago I saw fan art about it on Facebook. I'm glad that I searched it up on IMDb. I'm glad that even though my mom constantly questioned and antagonized, of course she did, I was a child back then, my tremendous desire to watch and finish Breaking Bad, I was patient enough to wait for a few years to return to it. And I'm glad I had a YouTube channel to make a video about it. I'm glad that I even had the haircut to match the vibe. And I'm glad I existed in the same generation, heck, the same century as Breaking Bad. To Breaking Bad, thank you for everything that you represented in my life. As all my favorite works of fiction have done, you have changed it for the better. The end.
You okay with that? You accept?
No.
Before we dig deep into the important characters of Breaking Bad, let's cover the other characters that experience emotional and mental issues. Marie is an often overlooked character of the show when it comes to depth and emotion, but in reality, Betsy Brandt's performance knocks her complexity out of the park. Marie and her desires to protect the well-being of Hank and her talkative nature with Skyler was an intriguing watch, half annoying and half comedic. But she cares about Hank, about Skyler, and about Walter Jr. Even until the 5th season, she even shows a great deal of concern to Walt as well. Her kleptomania was the most eye-scratching aspect of the show, as it can detract from the narrative. Despite that, it serves as character growth for a realistic portrayal of her character. Hank has the tough guy routine we see a lot in other media, but Breaking Bad deconstructs his mask and tests his patience and resolve. As the series progresses, he experienced traumatizing moments that cause him a great deal of anxiety and PTSD. Even by the 5th season, he still isn't fully recovered, and now he has to deal with the destruction of his family by Walter's actions. Despite all that, Season 5 redeems his masculinity without reverting to the tough guy act of Season 1. He is a lovable, annoying douchebag at the beginning, and by the conclusion, he is a hero who deserves justice. Peak writing. Now, most of the Breaking Bad fanbase consider Skyler White as the most annoying of the whole series, some considering her as noisy and a foil to Walter's goals. While some might argue that Skyler is too careful and weak-minded, if anything, she is as impulsive and proud as her husband. She is noble in her desire to save Walter Jr. and Holly from their father, but despite that, her loyalty to his husband still remains. Her depression in the early half of Season 5 depicts her relationship with Walt as a kidnapper and hostage, most hauntingly when Walter starts becoming less of a terrifying figure and more like a bone-chilling psychopath, his words and actions piercing the screen. Her infidelity with Ted in the 3rd season was an understandable but immoral reaction, and the realization of her infidelity was her redeeming quality. The complete breakdown of all her remaining love and care towards her husband occurs when Walter comes home after Hank's death, leading to one of the greatest and most harrowing moments of the entire series. But let's not forget about Walter's constant regret over his past, with Gretchen, his ex-girlfriend, and his former company, Grey Matter, which was over $2.16 billion.
Billions. With a B.
In the past, he sold his 33% share for only $5,000, which would have been over $720 million if he held on to his share. He regrets it very deeply. My second favorite scene in the show is where Walter's psyche irreversibly breaks, all hell broken loose. It is at the end of the 11th episode of the 4th season, Crawl Space, my favorite Breaking Bad episode. Check the scene out.
Down here!
Walt, what did that phone call mean?
Where's the rest?
Skyler, where is the money?
I gave it to Ted.
At first, Jesse is a comic relief who enjoys his reckless life with drugs and women that he engages with on a weekly basis. There's a hint of tragedy, but nothing to avert your eyes from his loose, laid-back, and rebellious personality. Jesse is insecure and defensive, and so he feels that he has to verbally fight with someone so that he gets heard. This stems from his childhood where he was never fully understood by his parents, with him insisting that he was really just a kid who fell into addiction. He also failed his classes all the time, one of those classes being Walter White's, telling him to apply himself. Eventually, he would make a series of decisions that would lead to him meeting Jane, the girl who would ruin him, and eventually lead to him being partially responsible for her death. But the worst choice he ever made in his life was to partner up with Walter White. All his pain, his suffering, all the people he's hurt, killed, or affected during the course of the series was because Walter White manipulated him, turning him into a deeply broken human being. By Walter's twisted set of morals, he drags Jesse down with his and Jesse's own actions. They were both actively ruining each other's lives. Walter letting Jane die is what turned Jesse into a vulnerable person. He started realizing the pain he caused against others in his life. He even had to turn to therapy to have a chance at redeeming himself. It failed. A season later, Jesse was put in a situation where he had to end the life of Gail Bedecker to save Walter and give them leverage against Gus's machinations. This effectively destroyed his whole life, an action he regrets throughout the whole series and even into the movie. Jane changed him. Gail deluded him. They both walked the same path. Jesse lost himself through it. Walter found himself in it.
If you just do stuff and nothing happens, what's it all mean?
When we do something so horribly wrong, we tend to dwell on the experience in an attempt to change it or reconcile with it. Sometimes, the problem we face is not how badly it affects us, but how badly we want it to go away. Some of us have the luxury of going to therapy for it, but will paying for help really help? Yes it will. But sometimes internalizing the guilt makes it harder for any kind of therapy to truly remove it. It is important to talk to someone about what you are feeling, especially in detail, because the simple act of letting a person know and accepting you with compassion relieves you of the burden of having to keep guilt inside. Guilt is one of the highest forms of self-love. To feel shame is what keeps us from getting better. When we're stuck in the process of regret and realization, the chance for us to mend the damage we caused slowly slips away from us by time. If we do not love ourselves enough to change, then we will suffer even more. When you know you have done something wrong, guilt makes us realize the weight of our wrongdoings. But when guilt stays for a very long time, it becomes shame. We now attack our identity and not the act itself. We are now the reason things can't be fixed. It is wrong to move on so easily, but it is worse to stay there. But we cannot live in self-acceptance alone. To accept is to understand that what's done is done, sure, but we haven't really solved the situation. Talking about it with someone doesn't solve it either, but it makes it easier. It makes it known. Self-acceptance is inaction. Guilt is inaction. Action is action. So in moving on from the bad, do not accept who you are. Accept the process of trying to be. Self-acceptance is knowing our strengths and weaknesses that you can't change. Improvement is avoiding the rationalization of mistakes and instead working to improve and change our lives. For me, that means understanding that I am not doing enough for my future and that I can improve on it, but accepting that I am impulsive and so I should think more carefully and ask people for help. Should my callousness and confusion to come to terms with my flaws hinder me from improving myself? No. Should my shame in such flaws means that I can't accept these flaws? No. And therefore, if these are my flaws inherent in me, should I just ignore it? Accept that it will hurt people? No. Should I blame other people that choose me, that put up with me, and that loved me for ever getting hurt? Absolutely not. Because it's still me. So in some ways, we grow up like Jesse. We fail and we fall and we make mistakes. And we are given multiple chances to get back and do the right thing. To be good, not just because God exists, not because someone is watching, but because it is in the very best interest of the heart and the fellow human being to do good, to grow, to change, to live, to pray, and to love. Every 40 seconds, a person dies from suicide. In the time it takes for me to tell you this up to the end of the sentence, at least 10 people have already attempted suicide through various methods, which are too bad for YouTube's content standards. Most importantly, they are affected by a disorder, a problem, or an issue that may stem from physical, mental, and emotional problems that they have. But sometimes, it's really just life itself. One of those 10 people ends it. Forever. It is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and the world needs more of it. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in some of my introspective works, then the next best thing you'd enjoy is my very own book, Long Season. Inspired by journal diaries and philosophical ramblings, Long Season is an adventure within, through the ins and outs of daily life and what thoughts a teenager may have at this time of life. For context though, I'm not a teenager anymore. Yeah. So if you're interested, you may check it in the link down below.
Get the madness of the heart, so we can act a fool.
気に食わねえな。投げらんねえな。
It's incomplete without you. The silver soul is running.
目つぶってても見えるぜ。金時